Hey, well, welcome back to Reason and Theology. I felt a conviction to cover something incredibly disturbing. I tend to watch the Piers Morgan show relatively frequently. I don't get a chance to watch a whole lot of content just because I'm a content creator myself, as well as a number of other things like a professor. And so I just don't have a whole lot of time to watch a lot, but I do tend to watch a lot of Piers Morgan, especially with situations related to Gaza and Israel and things like that, among other topics. So I've seen my fair share of controversies, especially on the Piers Morgan show, which is certainly known for facilitating a great deal of controversies, especially on this particular topic. But what I saw yesterday on the Piers Morgan show might be the most disturbing thing that I've seen so far. I feel like it takes the cake. A Zionist, Daniella Weiss, was featured at the beginning of the episode. There were some other guests, Rabbi Shmuley, of course, as well as some other figures, and Cenk Ugar. And they were going back and forth later on in the episode. But the first 30 minutes, oh boy, it was an interview with this Daniella Weiss, and I wasn't familiar with her until this this episode featuring her. And I'm going to play that section of the interview. I'm going to speed it up a little bit so I don't get a copyright strike, hopefully. But we need to watch it and we need to talk about it because there's some really disturbing things here. Now, I earlier did a show earlier today with the situation going on in Gaza where Israel just bombed, or not bombed, but destroyed with a tank, um, a Catholic church in Gaza, the only Catholic church in Gaza. 2 have died. Others were injured, including the priest. This is the same priest that spoke to Pope Francis every single day about the situation in Gaza. Very tragic event. So I covered that earlier today, and I promised y'all that I would review this. So here we are. Let's watch it together. Warning, it's incredibly disturbing what you're about to witness. Let's go ahead and do it, though. I think it's important that we have this discussion. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let's watch it together, and I'll offer some commentary as we go through it. I'm going to speed past the introduction of Piers Morgan. Let's go ahead and begin. Please let me know if there's any difficulties seeing or hearing the clips from Piers Morgan.
An issue highlighted in a recent documentary.
Wow, you heard that right. This is just the tip of the iceberg, by the way. It's about to get really disturbing. But here she just laughs off the notion that she is advocating for a war crime. And she tries to dismiss it by saying, well, you're here cooperating with a war criminal? No. Interviewing somebody for the purpose of exposing them is quite the opposite. It's not cooperating. It's calling them out and holding them accountable, which is exactly what Piers Morgan is going to do, and say to her whenever she tries to spin it and say, well, why are you interviewing me if I'm a war criminal? Okay, let's begin.
Well, in a moment, we'll turn to the bigger picture and Israel's strikes today on Syria, as well as the Mossad conspiracies and anti-Semitism claims at the heart of the Epstein files debate. We'll begin by talking to Daniella Weiss, who you just saw in that Louis Theroux clip, the leader of the settler group Nahala. Well, welcome to you, Daniella Weiss. Thank you for joining me on Uncensored. Let me start by asking you, Mrs. Weiss, you're known as the godmother of the Israeli settler movement. Is your ultimate ambition for all Palestinians to be removed from the West Bank and Gaza?
You ask if it's my what I want. It's not ambition. Ambition I put into positive things. I mean, when people have to move from one place to another, it's not a question of ambition. I think there is no choice now, especially after the massacre of the 7th of October. The Gazans finished their chapter of history in Gaza, and they will have the terrorists themselves will be killed in the attacks of the Israeli army, of Tzahal, and those who support them will have to go to emigrate to other countries. And I think as far as people who want to live normal life, I think the option to go to other countries in the world is a good option. But it's not a question of ambition. I have an ambition to settle Jews all over the vast areas of the land that was given by God to the Jewish nation.
Let's stop there. I don't know why she continues to fixate on semantics like the word ambition. Come on, stop it. You know what he meant by that. Stop playing word games. The greater problem, however, is she's talking about dispelling people from their native homeland, and seems ironic given I remember the Jewish people were subject to that in Europe as well, right? Irony. Now, here you hear something incredibly disturbing, and that is she claims that the current state of Israel is entitled to that land. And by the way, she's going to argue not just the little sliver of land that they currently possess, but the wider land. And in a previous episode, I showed y'all that eventually you would have Israelis who would start calling for a wider settlement and expansion of the state of Israel, because they would argue that the biblical promised land that they argue belongs to them is actually much, much broader than the current territory that they currently possess. And so if they're consistent in claiming that they're owed this land, they're going to have to take over parts of Jordan. They're going to have to take over parts of Egypt. They're going to have to take over Syria. They're going to have to take over, a little bit of Turkey. It has to be actually pretty massive. And so here you're going to actually start to see her advocate for that, once again proving me right that it's not just that territory that they believe is promised to them. They actually believe it's much bigger. And so you're going to see people advocating for that expansion. But I also dismantled the argument in a previous video, several previous videos, the notion that biblically, either from the Old or New Testament, that the current state of Israel is entitled to that land. I've went ahead and dismantled that in a number of ways. I'm not going to revisit that here. It deserves its own episode and was given its own episode. I'll put a link to those in the show notes, but just to quickly summarize that in case you haven't seen those, it's very clear, according to the Old Testament, that the land promises were conditional and were based upon following the law of Moses. Clearly, the state of Israel does not follow the law of Moses. Just look at the pride parades taking place in Tel Aviv and other things. It's not at all, it's very much a secular government. It's not at all one that follows the law of Moses. Therefore, already they're disqualified. They already cannot inherit the land. Moreover, the New Testament claims that the land promises are promised to those who are part of the new covenant, and ultimately to Jesus himself, and therefore anyone who is in Jesus, those who belong to the new covenant. So I showed whether you hold to the Old Testament alone or the Old Testament and New Testament, there's no way that you can maintain that the current state of Israel is entitled to that land. No way. But the irony here is she's going to argue biblically and theologically that the state of Israel is entitled to land. Well, guess what? The Palestinians are going to argue theologically that they're entitled to the land, because they have their arguments that they can use from the Quran to make that claim. Now, who's going to arbitrate between theological arguments, one based on an interpretation of the Old Testament and another based on an interpretation of the Quran? Who's going to arbitrate there? Is the UN? Who's going to do that? These are theological claims, and I don't know how a third party here who's really being objective could arbitrate on theological matters like that. But even again, taking the standards that she's attempting to use, the current state of Israel is not entitled to even the land that it currently possesses. Aside from the fact that according to international law, what they're doing in the West Bank is wrong, and so on and so forth. Okay. As well as Gaza, the Gaza Strip. That's also a violation of international law, and what they've been doing there, despite claiming that they withdrew in 2005, they also pretty much kept everybody there in Palestine, held them hostage. It's not like they can leave. It's not like they can travel by sea. It's not like they can travel by air. It's not like they can really go elsewhere without an extreme amount of difficulty. So we'll explore that a little bit more whenever she brings it up. But okay, let's go ahead and continue.
So this is my ambition. And in the midst of things, with the attacks of Arabs in different periods of history, and especially I emphasize now the last attack, the last massacre on civilian population, that was the end of the history of the Gazans in Gaza.
So she wants to say no Gazans belong in Gaza anymore. No Palestinians belong in Gaza. Everyone. She wants to have every single Palestinian removed from Gaza. Not just those who support Hamas, not just those who engaged in the events of October 7th, but even babies. And you'll see that here in just a moment.
But
it doesn't have to do with ambition.
Okay, there are 2 million people living in Gaza. Half of those people are under 18 years of age. More than 20,000 Gazan children have now been killed since October the 7th. My follow-up question is, how many of the innocent Gazans, how many of the Palestinian children do you think should come to, say, Israel and to be allowed to settle there?
To settle in Israel?
Yes.
Why?
Why? If you're going to tell them, if you tell them to leave, well, because if you tell them to leave their home, and you say that they should live in other countries, why would Israel not want to provide a home for them?
No. Because the conflict between Israel and the Gazans brought this chapter into its end.
But notice she's saying that not only what's included in the end of this chapter is, anyone who supports Hamas, but even just babies, even the children. Their chapter is done. And they need to be expelled, she says. She's basically arguing they're the problem of America and Europe and elsewhere, but not Israel's problem, and they need to be expelled. Ironic, given that the Jews were expelled from Europe. Ironic, given the treatment of the Jews historically. Ironic, given that the Jews were expelled from Palestine by the Romans. So she's advocating for the exact same thing that happened to the Jews historically. Now, obviously, she'll try to say, but the situation and circumstances are different. Of course, she'll argue that. But the people who were expelling the Jews would use the exact same arguments again, or for the expulsion of the Jews as she will use for the expulsion of Palestinians.
We don't take any chance anymore. Many soldiers told me, some of them from my own family, that they were witness to so much talk and propaganda against Israel. And I think that there shouldn't be anymore any any connection with between the Gaza population and the Jewish state. Let them be in other countries. There's 100 million Egyptians in Egypt, so there will be another 500,000 Gazans in Egypt, and some will be in Indonesia.
So she's saying the Palestinians, they're everyone else's problems and not the Israelis' problems. Let other nations deal with them. That is just remarkably exactly what happened to the Jews, right? Let's expel them from Spain. Let the other countries deal with them. Let's expel them from Germany. Let the other countries deal with them. Wasn't Hitler arguing initially to expel the Jews from Germany and send them over to America? Saying, look, America has all this land. They got plenty of territory for the Jews. Come get them. Of course, America wouldn't allow it and didn't allow it. But that's a different story for a different day.
Countries.
Okay, but if I suggest that we carve out an area of Israel to put the Palestinians, we just slice off. Let me finish. We slice off an area of Israel, and all the Israelis who currently live there have to leave and go and live in another country. Are you happy about that? Would you be happy with that?
You have some psychological need to slice pieces of the tiny state of Israel?
No, I'm just saying.
What's this need?
Listen, Gaza, as you know, well, hang on, let me finish. Gaza, as you know, is a very small territory. I'm talking about a similar sized territory.
Is what? Gaza is what?
I'm talking about, it's a very small territory.
Gaza is what?
Gaza is very small.
I know.
So I'm talking about taking
Indonesia.
Hang on. I'm talking about
Africa
taking.
is big.
Let me finish. I'm talking about taking the Gazan people, the innocent Gazan people, not Hamas, but innocent Gazan people, and I'm talking about taking a piece of Israel and removing all the Israelis who currently live there and sending them off to other countries, and then you put the Palestinian people in that space in Israel. How would you feel about that?
It's not a question of feel. It's not going to happen.
Right. Why would that be wrong? Why would that be wrong, Mrs. Weiss? Why would that be wrong?
Because it failed. We left Gaza in 2000.
It failed? The little innocent Palestinian babies right now? They attempted to somehow incorporate them into Israeli society. That failed? When did that happen? Because again, she's talking about expelling everyone from Gaza, including the babies. And she's going to make that even more explicit here in a moment. But including the babies. When did that fail? The babies right now in Gaza. When did Israel try to incorporate them into Israeli society? When did that happen? Give me some names, dates, times, places, all that.
And 5. And we were promised that Gaza will be Singapore. And I didn't believe in it, but many Israelis did believe in it. And it turned into hell. Upper hell, down, lower hell, hell. And I think no more experiments.
Yeah, it was a really bad place. There's a lot of reasons why. But whenever you basically trap people into a small little tiny piece of land, and you have several million people in that little tiny piece of land, and you don't allow them any real freedom, you're going to see some really horrible things taking place there.
We are not a laboratory. We are a nation that wants to live in the land that was given to us, to the Jews, by God.
But you actually,
there you go. She's claiming it again, that the current state of Israel is entitled to the land of Israel. With this ideology, it's totally legitimate in her mind to expel everyone who currently lives in that land and for them to now occupy those homes, those places, that territory, to expel the inhabitants and for them to take it over. Because they, according to her, have a divine mandate from God to do so. Do you see how dangerous this ideology can be?
The Arabs, the Gazans don't want it. Yeah, I don't want to be an experiment, a laboratory with experiments on the Jewish people.
No, so you made it clear. You think you would
answer you very... I want to tell you, what is your private name? Sorry, I don't know what I'm talking about, too.
My name?
What is your name? I want to address you.
My name is Piers Morgan, yeah.
Morgan? Can I address you, Morgan?
You can call me what you like. My name is Piers Morgan. What are the fruit you eat to stay healthy?
The commercial.
Morgan.
Sit with an intelligent dialogue, or you're the interviewer and answering. Let's continue. But if you want to repeat this experiment of putting Gazans in Israel, the answer is simple. It will never be.
No, I heard you. I just wonder.
So much.
Okay. I just wonder. Okay. Hang on. I just want to give you a question. I just wonder. Obviously, you're outraged by the idea of Palestinian people taking the place of Israelis in Israel, and I understand that. But what gives you the right to then tell Palestinian people, innocent people, children, who've had nothing to do with Hamas, what gives you the right to uproot? Let me finish.
Wait, the children attacked them? The little babies attacked them? He's talking about the innocent people, not those who supported Hamas, not those who engaged in October 7th. He's talking about innocent people, including babies. What gives her the right to say they need to be expelled? Every single one of them. Her answer, because they attacked us. So their babies are responsible? Their little children are responsible for the actions of others? Isn't this the exact same ideology that was used to persecute Jewish people in Europe? Weren't the Nazis arguing similar things against the Jewish people? Ironic, right? It is so tragic to watch people as a group, an ethnic group, who were abused and persecuted, Some of them now starting to become the abuser and persecutor, currently in the form of the state of Israel. That is so tragic to watch, because it's like watching somebody who was unjustly abused as a child, but then they grow up to be an abuser. It's so tragic to watch, but it also doesn't excuse the behavior of the abuser just because they were abused. And so the state of Israel and what it's doing here and what she's advocating for isn't off the hook just because bad things happen to Jewish people or even the state of Israel.
To uproot those people from their homes and expel them in what would be ethnic cleansing, which is a war crime, as you know.
They attacked Israel on the 7th of October.
Yeah.
They massacred Jews on the 7th of October after we evacuated Gaza for their benefit. What is not clear in what I say?
What's not clear is why she's saying that innocent people have to suffer the price and pay the price. That's the problem. In addition to the fact that, okay, yeah, horrible things happened on October 7th. But Israel's also done horrible things both before October 7th and certainly after October 7th. That doesn't mean that Israel should be treated in the way that she's advocating for treatment of the Palestinians. But notice this. Notice how intractable she is and how arrogant she is in her position. She doesn't care about innocent people and innocent lives, but she wants her own people to be defended. She values her own people's lives, and that's understandable. But if you value your own people's lives, you also have to value innocent lives elsewhere. This woman is a monster. And you wouldn't assume that if you just look at her. You would think, wow, very presentable woman. And yet the ideology that she's presenting, in some sense, has some sad parallels with Nazi Germany.
Well, what is not clear is that you have also, in going after Hamas in Gaza, massacred between 70 and 100,000 Palestinians. And at what point does that become disproportionate? At what point does the fact that that the Israeli government continues to prosecute this war in a way that kills so many children, does this become something which is completely unacceptable?
Okay, not acceptable. So it's a fact. If they had not, you say that it is not acceptable. I understand that it's not acceptable by you. I think that if the Gazans hadn't started, the Hamas hadn't started the attack, there wouldn't have been a war. And we, for instance, as people who were evacuated from Gaza in the past 20 years.
But also not allowing them any kind of freedom of travel and movement. And in allowing them, and in many ways, engaging in persecution of them, putting them in a horrible position. Now, that doesn't justify October 7th, but it also doesn't excuse the reaction at this point on part of the state of Israel. And by the way, this didn't start on October 7th. Numerous injustices were committed by the state of Israel prior to October 7th, and now certainly after October 7th. So that doesn't justify anything that Hamas did. But it also doesn't justify Israel. And it didn't start October 7th. She thinks that this somehow started October 7th. No. There were plenty of things that led up to that form of aggression and behavior. And that doesn't justify it any more than it justifies Israel's response to October 7th. Both are wrong and both need to be condemned. It's possible to condemn October 7th and what Israel is doing, both before and after October 7th. But the reality is, who has the greater problem here? The one who holds all the cards and can make all the changes, which is the state of Israel. And who has who is worse in the situation? At this point, the state of Israel. With all of the faults that you can say about the Palestinian people and how this situation has developed, I think at this point it's abundantly clear more fault now lies with the state of Israel than anyone else in this conflict, although there's faults on all sides. And nobody's innocent here when it comes to just the sides, right? Both groups are wrong. But I also don't think that every single individual has to be punished for this. I wouldn't say every individual in the state of Israel has to be punished for what the state of Israel did. I don't think innocent Israeli babies have to be punished because what the state of Israel has done. Nor do I think innocent Israel or Palestinian babies have to be punished for Hamas in October 7th. But she wants to engage in this collective punishment. And the irony is, if people would just apply that back to her, they would then justify the events of October 7th with that same idea. They would justify any other atrocities that come later. And they would also justify with that same methodology and way of looking at things, anything else that has happened to the Jewish people in the past.
I must say it's kind of a unpleasant confession for me, but this is the truth of the matter, that we haven't dealt with the idea of returning to Gaza, returning to our homes, because we said, okay, there was a contract, we gave it away, we didn't want it to happen, it happened, and that's it.
The irony of returning to homes. What about Palestinians being allowed to return to their homes that the state of Israel took away from them? But whatever.
Gates closed.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Here's the problem, Daniella. You have no right. Israel has no right to just take Gaza, to just take the West Bank.
Wrong. According to her, what Piers is not getting is she thinks that they have not only the right to take the West Bank and Gaza, she thinks they have the right to take everything in that area. Let me show you a map of the biblical promised land. I've shown this before. Here's just one. Let me pull it up. I'm trying to find a large one for you here. Okay. There you go. This is what she thinks Israel is promised. Not just that little sliver of land, but parts of Egypt, parts of Saudi Arabia, all of Jordan, much of Syria, all of Lebanon, part of Iraq, part of Turkey. All of this. She believes all of this is promised. So not just little Gaza, not just little West Bank, all of this. Which is why you will see the state of Israel engaging in expansionism, because it is claiming that it is entitled to that land from a biblical promise. Okay, if you really believe that, what is to stop you from pursuing all this other territory at some point in time? Nothing. And this will be exactly what is used to justify their expansion into other territory, including Syria. So that's what Piers is not getting. She thinks they are entitled to this land. And guess what? In the Old Testament, the Canaanites were to be driven out, right? So she would be able to use this as an argument. If the state of Israel is actually entitled to that land, and it's in continuity with the Israelites of the Old Testament, well, just as Joshua was allowed to expel the Canaanites by the sword, she would then argue Israel can expel the Palestinians by the gun.
To expel 8, 9 million Palestinians. You have no right to do this. You have had no right to occupy Gaza for the last God knows how long. Where do you think you have this right to do all this?
It's not just occupying. Even when they withdrew, they were suppressing the people and not really allowing them any freedom. And when you have everyone boxed into a little tiny piece of territory, horrible things are going to start happening. Humans are going to start doing terrible things. I'm sorry, that's just the reality of when you put people in really bad conditions, they start to do bad things.
You're furious at the idea of any part of Israel being given up for Palestinians. Fine, okay. But why would you then think it's fine for you to take over Gaza and the West Bank?
May I ask you, why do you repeat the same question 3 times?
Because she's not answering it sufficiently.
You know, I don't see your face, so it's a kind of difficult without the gestures. So
well, let me simplify it for you. What gives you the right?
What
gives you the right to think that you can expel millions and millions of Palestinians?
Look here, I don't know if the viewers, the people who see your program, have the patience for a historical summary. As the State of Israel was established in 1948.
And how was it established? It's absolutely tragic how it was actually done. The Israeli narrative, there's some truth to it. But when you dig deeper, it's often at best an oversimplification and an ignoring of some really horrible things that happened to the Palestinians. Well, there are some horrible things that some Palestinians did to Israelis. Both sides. Both sides have blood on their hands. Both sides committed injustices. But Israel wasn't this righteous state as they try to depict things. And it did start a lot of the problems.
3 days after the Holocaust and 3 years after the Holocaust and 2,000 years after the dispersion, after the Romans dispersed the Jewish nation.
And by the way, since she's bringing up, as usual, the Holocaust and the expulsion of the Jewish people from Rome, both tragic events, I honestly think that in light of Israel's behavior, the state of Israel's behavior, the Holocaust card will run out of gas for the vast majority of people. Probably already has ran out of gas for most people, and certainly for future generations, because people will just say, yeah, what happened there was horrible. Why did you then go and behave similarly towards the Palestinian people? That's going to be the common retort. I think after World War II, the Jewish people received a great deal of sympathy, and rightly so, because of the tragedy of what happened. And coming on the heels of a lot of other tragedies for nearly 2,000 years. But the problem is when the victim becomes an oppressor, they're probably going to lose a lot of sympathy after that. And that's sad. That really is sad. Because like I said, the events of the Holocaust was terrible. But I really think for most people, it's going to fall on deaf ears moving forward because of what the state of Israel has done.
And then somehow there's an ingathering of the Jews in the land of Israel, the biblical land. And the biblical land that we hold to now is very tiny. We tried, according to the partition plan first, to be satisfied with a tiny, tiny piece of land where we have independence.
There you go. Listen to that. Oh, what we have right now is just tiny, 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 tiny. She believes that they're actually entitled to much more, as I just showed. But, stop it with this tiny, 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 tiny. Because Israel is given an outrageous amount of resources, assets, money, finances. You can't just keep saying, look how small this territory is. Yeah, but look at all the benefits you're being given.
And then when we were small, I would say tiny, and even without Jerusalem, we tried to manage a Jewish independence in the biblical state of Israel, and we were prevented from living this way. I was born before the state of Israel, so I know all this history from my own flesh and blood and my own family, and my father wounded in the War of Independence. So we tried to live in a tiny land, and the Arabs didn't let us live.
Yeah, this is oversimplifying things. I mean, I was fed a lot of this same propaganda when I lived in Israel and grew up in Israel. So I understand where she's coming from, but she has an overly simplistic understanding of the events of the formation of the state of Israel.
So then there was the 6-Day War, and where I live now was liberated. I say liberated because it's the heart of our homeland.
There you go. That's the way she frames it. Liberation. Well, guess what? Wait until she calls for the advocation or for the liberation, I should say, of Egypt, Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, Turkey, all those places that, according to her, belongs to the state of Israel because of a biblical mandate.
In the 6-Day War. And since then, we tried to live peacefully. And the Arabs don't let us. So how can you try to change facts? Now, you gave...
Speaking of facts, what about the Zionist terrorists in the formation of the state of Israel? What about them? What about terrorizing Palestinians when Israel was established? She's just leaving out all of this stuff. You have injustices from both sides, but ultimately, who was the aggressor there? Israel. Israel. Who was ultimately in the wrong? Israel. Who holds all the cards, all the chips, can make the changes, can really call for peace, can really bring about peace? Israel. But who's killing and massacring numerous innocent people right now? Israel.
Give me a chance to relate a tiny summary of history. If you have another way to put it, please go ahead.
Okay, I'll put it this way. I'll put it this way.
I'll put it this way.
Let me put it this way. The UK government has sanctioned you personally in May of this year. You were described as having been involved in threatening, perpetrating, promoting, and supporting acts of aggression and violence against Palestinian individuals.
This lady, make no mistake, is effectively a terrorist. So, yeah. But watch her reaction.
You've been described as the head of extremist settlers. The vast majority of the international community, including the United Kingdom, consider the settlements illegal under international law. Last year, the UN's top court, the International Court of Justice, said that Israel's occupation of Palestinian territories is against international law.
Right. And how many times has the state of Israel violated international law? Not only in its history, but I don't know, maybe in just the last few months. Israel consistently violates international law.
And Israel should stop settlement activity in the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem and end its illegal occupation of those areas and the Gaza Strip as soon as possible. So that's a bit of history for you, which is that you have been seen as the godmother of Israeli extremists who believe that you have a right to all this land, you have a right to settle where you want to, you have a right to expel all the Palestinians and to take over their land. And I say to you that actually, under international law, you do not have that right. It's actually a crime, what you're doing. And you should stop doing it. So that's my question. My question for you is, why do you continue to break the law?
Because she believes theologically that they're entitled to this land at all costs, and that all Palestinians are guilty, and all Palestinians either need to be removed or somehow dealt with in some other way. That's why. That's how she justifies it. There you go.
I don't know. You present things in a very journalistic way, so I don't know.
Well, they're facts.
You say, do it.
Everything I just read you is a fact.
Yes. What facts? What facts?
I just read you the facts. I can read them again if you didn't hear them.
Morgan, listen to this. I never hide what I do. I am being interviewed by you and by everyday media people come to this home and to the hills where I establish communities. And I tell what I think and what I do and what I plan. So if there is anything in what is so openly exposed that can be considered illegal.
Well, you're committing war crimes.
What is illegal in what I do?
You're committing war crimes.
Why? So you are speaking to me now.
Yeah.
You're giving so much time in your program to a person who commits war crimes.
Yeah.
Why do you
see? She's trying to do it again. Yeah, because he's trying to expose you and hold you accountable. Since nobody else will do it. Since governments won't do anything about it. Since America won't do anything about it. He's at least using his platform to expose her, as I'm attempting to do as well.
You do it.
I'm holding you to account.
What's the sense?
I'm holding you to account for your war crimes. I'm telling you should stop your war crimes. I'm telling you have absolutely...
It's such a joking matter for her. She just laughs at this.
You have no right to displace millions of Palestinians and kick them out of their homes. You don't have that right.
Morgan, you hope that through your program you will enhance the chance that I will be put to trial? Is this why you give me so much time in your program?
I mean, we can pray to God that she will face a trial. But I love what Piers Morgan says in response here.
Morgan, you hope that through your program you will enhance the chance that I will be put to trial? Is this why you give me so much time in your program?
Yeah, I think ultimately you should face a trial. Yeah.
Yeah, which again, history seems to be repeating itself, but in an ironic way. After World War II, you had the Nuremberg Trials, and I do suspect after when the dust is settled, when the smoke is cleared, a lot of these people in the state of Israel are going to face similar trials.
You should. You're breaking the law, and you're inspiring other people to break the law.
That's okay. What shall I tell you? I don't think it's not on my part to cooperate with a person if you want to do what you said. If I heard you well in the beginning of this program, that you want to give a chance for different people to express their views.
Sure.
This is journalistic. This is respectable.
I've heard your views. I just don't agree with them. I've heard your views.
But then you said you want to enhance. You want to enhance the chance that I will be put to trial. Well, I am not sure this is journalistic, but I'm with you in your hands now until this interview is finished.
I noticed
that's your decision.
I noticed that so far you haven't referred to the people of Gaza or the West Bank as Palestinians. Do you believe they're called Palestinians?
Palestine the name was given by Adrian, the emperor of Rome, who wanted to obliterate, to put an end to the Jewish existence in the world. So he gave a peculiar name to Jerusalem, Ilia Capitolina, and Israel, Palestina. And he tried very hard. And indeed, we were dispersed. And somehow, after so many years and so much persecution, we returned. And we are a successful nation.
Are they Palestinians?
So why should...
After so much persecution. But after so much persecution, the state of Israel is now persecuting others. The tragic irony of the state of affairs today.
I support why should I support the distorted idea of Adrian, who failed? And now, after the revival of the Jewish state, Arabs from different countries come here and want to enjoy.
Wait, what? Come there? They've been there. They didn't come there. They've been there. The people who came there are many of the Israelis that are currently there. They're the ones who came there. She's talking about people who have lived there for nearly 2,000 years. What is she talking about?
The treasures, I would say most of them are spiritual, but the treasures of the Holy Land.
Right, but just to be clear, you don't believe they're Palestinians.
The Jewish success.
You will not refer to them as Palestinians, right?
I think that Palestinians were invented by Adrian, and that the Arabs that come to Israel today want to get for themselves the success of the Jewish state.
Arabs that come there today. So there weren't Arabs there prior to the establishment of the state of Israel? What about all those people? I don't care what you call them. Semantics. There were people who lived there that were displaced. There are people who live there that are being persecuted unjustly. There are people who live there that the state of Israel is murdering. I don't care what you call them. These are word games. These are semantics. Call them Palestinians, call them something else. Doesn't matter. We're talking about the people who lived there before. We're talking about the people who live there now. We're talking about the people that are being murdered. Call them what you want. That's what we're talking about. And she's trying to play these little word games. Quibbling over the word ambition. Quibbling over the word Palestinian. Who cares what you call them? It's an injustice either way.
Right. That was created here after many years of dispersion.
Okay, and Mrs. Weiss, how do you feel about the fact that over 20,000 Palestinian children have now been killed since October the 7th in Gaza?
Watch this. Watch this. This was the scariest thing I've seen. I can't believe this actually happened. He asks about innocent babies and children that are being killed. What does she think about that? Because at this point, Israel has killed more of them than Hamas killed on October 7th. Watch.
I think that the Palestinians, as you said, you see, I said Palestinians, the Gazans and all Arabs around should stop attacking Israel.
She doesn't care about those people. Watch that. Should stop attacking Israel. These little babies are attacking Israel. Little babies are attacking Israel. Is that seriously what she's saying? Yeah, that's what she's saying. Mm-hmm. Either the babies, or she's saying that their parents are, and therefore the babies are responsible. Do you hear this? Isn't this the same ideology that was used to persecute innocent Jewish people? This kind of collective punishment, collective blame, wasn't that used against the Jewish people? And couldn't people use her own standards to persecute her own people at this point? And say, there needs to be collective punishment at this point. Of course, she would decry that if people started to do that with Jewish babies and babies in the state of Israel. And rightly so. She should decry that. But she's using that same methodology and standard to persecute others and to indict others. This is disgusting. This woman should be behind bars.
Right. I just asked you how you felt about 20,000 children being killed by the IDF. So how do you feel about that?
I think that the parents should be very careful before they teach the children to hate Jews and to kill Jews.
Yeah, irony, given that she is teaching people to hate Palestinians. See how that works? She's doing the very same thing that she's accusing the Palestinians of. So whether her accusation about the Palestinians is right or wrong or more complex than just either right or wrong, maybe it's partially true, partially false, regardless of whether that's true or not, she's doing the very same thing that she's accusing others of.
That wasn't my question. That wasn't my question. Sorry to be persistent, but my question.
That was your question.
My question was, how do you feel? My question was, how do you feel? How do you personally feel about over 20,000 Palestinian children now being killed since October the 7th in Gaza? How do you feel about that?
Now, shouldn't she be able to say, I feel that it's just as tragic when an innocent Palestinian is killed, in the same way that I feel it's just as tragic that an innocent Israeli baby when it's killed, or an innocent Jewish baby when it's killed. I feel it's just as bad. Shouldn't she be consistent here and say it's all wrong? It's all just as tragic. Jewish life is equal to Palestinian life, and whenever an innocent person is killed, it's a horrible thing all around, no matter what their ethnic identity is. Shouldn't she be able to say that? She should be able to say it, but she cannot. And he keeps pressing her on it over and over and over, and she just cannot show any sympathy for innocent people. And it's this ideology that's ironic because it's ironically similar to the Nazis.
I think that Arabs, Gazans, or Jordanians, or Syrians, or whoever, should be very, very careful with the way they educate the children.
Yeah, that wasn't my question.
Now,
that wasn't my question.
Many of them.
Can you answer my question?
Let's talk about the education of Israelis. When I grew up in Israel, the education that I received about Jesus and Christianity was very disturbing. You cannot even draw a plus sign in the way we do here in America, because a plus sign looks like a cross. Can't even do that. And if you said the name Jesus or even Christian in the Israeli circles and Jewish circles I grew up in, it is worse than dropping the F-bomb in public. I mean, which I guess no longer matters now, but it did back then. But let's talk about the education that Israelis are receiving as well. There's a lot left to be desired, a lot that needs to be changed there as well. It's absolutely insane, some of the hatred that some people are taught. On both sides, sure. Yeah. But she's not in the clear. And the state of Israel is not in the clear. And their education system is not in the clear by any stretch of the imagination.
Was my answer.
So you don't care? You have no thoughts about these children at all?
You choose your questions, and I answer them the way I believe is right.
But just to be clear, you have nothing to say about 20,000 children being killed. Nothing at all.
I have a lot.
And just to be clear, Many Israelis teach their children that Christianity is identifiable with Nazism and the Holocaust. Now, for every Christian watching, they're going to say that's absurd. Nazism and the Holocaust was not Christian at all. You're right. But a lot of Israeli parents do teach their children that Christianity equals Holocaust equals Nazi equals Hitler. But she's, again, criticizing Palestinian education. She says that, well, they're teaching them to hate Jews. In some cases, that might be true. And that's horrible. But you have the same problem on the other side as well. A hatred towards Christians and also Palestinians.
I have a lot to say about everything that happened as a result of the massacre of the 7th of October.
I understand you care about Israeli
Arabs
children
and
who died,
Gazans
as do I. But I'm able to care about both sides of children who've died. Why don't you care, seemingly, about the Palestinian children who've died?
Amen. Yeah, at least Piers has been consistent on this point. He cares about all human life, and especially innocent life.
Why can't you express any sympathy or sorrow or empathy with the children who've died in Gaza? Are you able to do that?
I warn all Arabs from all sides, from all borders, warn them, stop educating children to hate
So just to be clear, I've now offered you three times.
I made myself very clear.
Oh, you made yourself very clear.
You asked me 5 times.
I'm going to give you one last.
You asked me 7 times.
Okay, I'm going to give you one last chance to offer some empathy or sympathy or sorrow about the deaths of 20,000 children in Gaza. Are you capable of doing that?
Nope.
I can tell you that had you cared, and I don't believe you that you care a tiny bit about one killed person, if you do not use the means that you have as a media person to stop educating children.
I gave you 4 chances.
Jews. Okay, you gave me 7. You gave me 7.
And you know what? You couldn't give a damn, could you?
That you are to blame more than me.
She is disgusting. What a disgusting woman. She needs to be behind bars. This is horrible. This is one of the most disgusting people I've come across on the Piers Morgan show. And there's been a whole bunch that were pretty terrible people. But she's eerily similar in her ideology to Nazism. And that's the irony here.
You don't care, and all you want is all the Palestinians gone. You can barely even bring yourself to say their name. All you want is to take over the West Bank and Gaza. You don't care how many die in the process. You want them all gone. You don't care, do you? That's the bottom line.
As you said, the audience will judge.
Yeah, they will judge. And God will also judge you. And I hope the state judges her as well.
Yeah, they will. Danielle Weiss, thank you very much for coming on Uncensored. I appreciate it. Well, joining me on the panel is author and...
Wow. The rest of the interview is pretty fascinating, too. Well, actually, let me just play the first reaction.
Activist Rabbi Shmuley, the founder and CEO of the Young Turks, Czech Yuga, and the Sunday Times columnist and author Matthew Said. Matthew, you were sitting here with me watching that interview. Your thoughts?
Well, I thought it was a very illuminating interview and the kind of smiling maternal face of religious fundamentalism in Israel. You asked many times what gave her the right to ship out Palestinians from Gaza and the West Bank. She gave a whole range of answers, but the key one was early in the interview when she said she had a divine right. She believes that that area is promised to the Jews by God.
But the wild thing is, Palestinians can argue they have a divine right based on the Quran. So who's going to mediate between theological disputes like that? Who's going to arbitrate?
Because of that, and the fact that she believes she has the absolute truth, she feels that anything is justified in meeting that aspiration. I've written a lot about this conflict, and I focused, I think rightly in many ways, on the fundamentalism of Hamas. They also think they've got absolute truth. They think they are justified in killing infidels and killing Jews. But we have to recognize that Israel, yes, it's a liberal democracy. I support it instinctively. It's in a tough neighborhood. But there are, within Israel, fundamentalists. And what worries me the most, Piers, is that within the Israeli cabinet, Smotrich, Ben-Gvir, these are fundamentalists, nationalists. They have the ear of Netanyahu. And ever more, I get the sense that they are nudging the administration towards more carnage, more bloodshed, It's obliterating the image of Israel in the wider world, it seems to me, with no strategic objective in sight.
Not only that, but guess who's funding it all? Unfortunately, us in the United States, for the United States viewers, unfortunately, we're funding this garbage. Our tax dollars is used to fund this stuff. The murder of innocent children. But hey, what else is new? We've been funding the murder of innocent infants right here in the United States for a long time, too. It's terrible to see this. At this point, the funding needs to just stop. America needs to stop funding this. If Israel wants to continue about its business, at the very least, the United States needs to stop supporting it. And probably also needs to stop blocking stuff when it comes to international law and allow for some accountability for the state of Israel. Because, of course, the United States were constantly blocking consequences against the state of Israel with the veto power that we have. This is tragic. When will it end? How will history judge not only the state of Israel, but the United States? When the United States had the opportunity to take in Jewish people before they were killed in the Holocaust. Wasn't done. And that looks really bad on the United States at this point, right? Well, I also think it's going to look really bad on the United States that it supports and funds what is going on right now with the state of Israel and Palestine. History did not judge the Holocaust very well, and rightly so. It's absolutely horrible. We look back on it and say that's terrible, right? Future generations will look back on the United States and say what the United States did was terrible and what the state of Israel did was terrible. Whether we like it or not, that's the truth. I know a lot of people will be upset that I've said this. I understand. I get it. I used to support the Israeli side. I used to buy into the narrative. I understand there's some sincere people who are misled. I get it. And I know they'll be mad at me. I understand. I know where they're coming from. I used to think the same way. But those of y'all who do appreciate what I've said here, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Also consider supporting the channel financially. It is costly, not just financially to run the channel, but in every other way. It costs a lot to speak the truth. If you want to support the channel so I can continue to do that and continue to remain independent here on this show, I need your support. Hit the join button right here on YouTube to become a channel member, or go to patreon.com/reason and theology. Consider supporting me there as well. I would greatly appreciate it. Also, check out rtcourses.com. I got another course coming up October 16th. I'll show it to you real quick if you want to sign up for it. October 16th, 12 p.m. Central. I'm going to be offering 2 courses. If you can't attend live, that's fine. If you can, great. You can ask some Q&A at the end. But if not, anyone who purchases the course will have access to it indefinitely after I deliver the course on October 16th. But you can go ahead and purchase it now to get your spot for the live event. No salvation outside the church. A careful look at the Catholic position. This is rtcourses.com. R as in reason, T as in theology, courses.com. Just click on it and you can purchase a course here for $24.99. So just making y'all aware of that. August 16th, 12 p.m. Central. Again, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Don't forget to leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you and what your thoughts are about what we just witnessed. We'll see you later. God bless.